Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of our tactical breakdown series. Joining you after Arsenal have announced their first signing of, I was going to say June. I feel like it is, but I'm pretty sure that Marquinhos was also announced in June. Our second official signing, I suppose, of the summer in Fabio Vieira. And in today's show, hopefully we can bring you information about who might be a future summer signing as we focus today's tactical breakdown, the show in which we look at the players that have been linked to Arsenal and break them down in a statistical and analytical way with the help of some expert insight. Look into Lisandro Martinez of Ajax. Very excited to learn a little bit more about him. And as always, we are joined by an expert to give us some insight. If you haven't already done so, though, please do drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. We'll be doing these shows for all of Arsenal's transfer targets throughout the summer. Speaking of Fabio Vieira, we have already done one on him, so you'll definitely be able to check that out on the channel already as well. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to guys over at We Talk Arsenal who have brought us today's expert insight. So without further ado, I don't even know what I'm saying at this point. So we're just going to throw straight into the expert insight. Have a good one. Enjoy, sit back, relax. And as always, drop a like if you could.
Hi, Popimento here from We Talk Ajax for Gooner Talk to discuss Lisandro Martinez. Arsenal is interested, so I'm here to give you some insight. Licha, our left central back defender, Argentinian. What can I say about him? I mean, he became quickly a fan favorite at Ajax. He's been here with us for 3 years, started on the defensive midfield position. Had some moments that he also played left back, but his best position is left central back. He even got benched for 6 months before he got that position. But since he got that position, he's been a starter for Ajax, and he hasn't been on the bench since. Great player on and off the ball. I think you can see him as a midfielder turned defender, but a midfielder with exceptional defensive qualities and also very comfortable on the ball, press resistant, wins a lot of headers for somebody that's small. He's, I think, 1.75 meters. So he anticipates well, has a lot of insight, has a good pass, not only short passes, but also long passes. So he would be an asset for every team. Now, Arsenal wants him. I get why. I mean, if you play with three in the back, you could see him with Ben White, Gabriel, and then him as a left central back. I wouldn't use him as a fullback or wing back because he's not that type of player. He could do it, but he would do it in his own way, but don't expect a Kieran Tierney type. So it's better for him to be central, maybe defensive midfielder at Arsenal or in the back line with Gabriel and Ben White. He would be an asset just because of his work rate, his discipline, his will to win. All these South Americans, but especially this guy, they have this South American fighting spirit, also called grinta, and we love that about him, and that's also why he became such a fan favorite. Now, I do think he would work well at Arsenal, but for 30 million, you guys can forget it. Arsenal already stated that they don't want to sell the big three. And then with the big three, I'm talking about Timber, Martinez, and Anthony, who have been linked a lot. So to open up a discussion about Martinez, Arsenal would have to come in with at least 50 million. Hope you guys got enough insight here. And till next time.
A massive thank you to the guys over at We Talk Arsenal for the insights. You can check them out on Twitter at We Talk Arsenal. We Talk Ajax. Sorry, We Talk Arsenal. I've got that stuck in my head, but We Talk Ajax. Do make sure you go and check those guys out. It's really interesting hearing about the price in particular and kind of the expectations around that. There were kind of whispers that the £25 million was far from what Ajax wanted. There's been some reports today, in fact, kind of doubling down on that and saying that the 50 million euros would be what it cost. That might put Arsenal off, considering the business that Arsenal need to get done elsewhere. If they had been able to get Martinez for around the £30 million figure, it would have been more accessible. his ability to play in midfield as well may play into it. It may mean that if they sign Martinez, that they don't go for that central midfielder. The Yuri Tielemans deal is near dead at this point, so it would make sense that they would maybe use that as an option to cover in the defensive part of the midfield at least. That said, there are some links to Fabian Ruiz that have creeped up today. I can see the 50 million price tag certainly is surprising you guys in the chat box, but what shouldn't surprise you is how good this guy is. Let's go into the second part of today's show, which is, of course, as always, to look at the players' statistics. What he does thrive in is kind of what he's producing from a creativity level as a player in his position. You're going to see some statistics in a second, but as treated as a centre-back, he does shine. He played the majority of his games as a centre-back, and so these are the stats and percentiles with him compared to other players in his position. Passes attempted, completed, progressive passes and carries, he comes out in the 90 plus percentiles. In fact, a lot of them are in the 99th. He ranks as one of the highest for what he achieves on the pitch. Tackles as well comes out incredibly high in the 99th percentile as well. He's an incredibly impressive player, and it's no surprise that Arsenal are trying to sign him. Let's move on to the player comparison section. We're going to compare him with Arsenal's current crop of defenders, including Tomiyasu, who is, of course, a versatile defender at Arsenal. Makes it a good comparison, as is White. White's got that versatility to his game, and Gabriel is the natural comparison. We haven't really been linked with anyone similar to Martinez. You know, go and talk about Zinchenko and Hickey, but they are very different to Martinez, and I think it'd be more appropriate to compare him to the likes of White, Gabriel, and Tomiyasu. So if you look at the heat map, you can see obviously Tomiyasu playing in that right back role, Ben White again on the right sided centre back role. Gabriel, Martinez have a lot more similarity, but the spread and the coverage of what Martinez brings to the Ajax team, he is everywhere on that left-hand side, and even going and progressing into the opposition half. When we get to his passing stats, you'll see what I'm talking about. In terms of his defensive duels, winning 69.9% of those that he gets involved with, 7.2 defensive duels per game, exceptionally frequent, exceptionally good at winning his duels as well. Aerial duels, he's only short, only about 5'8", 5'9", not the tallest of centre-backs, and if that is to put you off, you shouldn't be, because he still wins 63.6%, despite being the shortest on this list of defenders. He wins the most aerial duels in return of percentages. Does get involved with a fair few as well. 4.87 per 90 is better than that of Gabriel and Ben White. Not quite as high, though, as Tomiyasu's 5.32, but he wins significantly more per duel. In terms of interceptions, it comes out really well again. 5.15 interceptions, only beaten by Tomiyasu, higher than that of both White and Gabriel. At this point, I think it's probably important to point out the context. Of course, he is playing for an Ajax side that have dominated the Eredivisie for some time, so do bear that in mind when looking at these stats. Losses, only 43.5% of his losses are in his own half, and for someone that progresses the ball and plays the ball quite riskily at times, that's lower than that of both White and Gabriel, not as low as that as Tomiyasu, which is interesting, actually, because Tomiyasu, as we know, is more of the right back, so losing it in his own half, you might think it would be more so. But then, unsurprisingly, he comes out well in the recoveries in the opposition's side. In fact, the number of recoveries is a joke. 16.88 recoveries per 90 is mental. And when you compare that, that's double that of Gabriel at this point. An incredibly successful recovery style player, and 25.7% of those are actually happening in the opposition half. So you're looking at there at 4 recoveries per game happening in the opposition half. Clearances, he comes out well again, only finishing behind Tomiyasu slightly and Ben White at 2.67. And in terms of fouls, he is quite aggressive as a player, and he comes out high on this level at 0.84 in comparison to, say, Tomiyasu's 0.85. This is where we get a little bit even more. You thought this couldn't get better. It's going to get better. Passing stats, 81 passes per 90 is an incredibly frequent amount of passes for a centre-back to make anyway, and 91.7% of those, highest on this list, reaches their target. Passes into the final third, again, triple that of Gabriel, nearly double that of Ben White, certainly more than double of that than Tomiyasu, 13.43, with the highest accuracy as well. 82.9% of those passes reach the target. Passes into the box comes out again, highest, 2.19. I'm not even going to try and use the maths to work out how many times that's better off than Gabriel. I think it's nearly 7 times the amount of passes across the season he is beating Gabriel for passes into the box. He loves getting forwards as a centre-back. You might think that would let him get exposed at times. Maybe it would in the Premier League. Maybe he'd be playing different. It's certainly something to consider. But the passes are quite incredible. Progressive runs, he gets on the ball. He moves it from one half of the field to the other. 2 progressive runs per game. The highest on this list isn't beaten by White, who, as we know, does also love to progress the ball forwards when he can. And lastly, in terms of shooting, he scored a fair few goals this season. In fact, you can see 7 on that graphic there. 66 shots have been taken across the season with a 28.8% accuracy rating. So despite the fact that he's of course done that area, hold on, this isn't right. Ignore the shooting stats for a second, because I've realized I've just for some reason got the wrong player on there. So ignore the shooting, but other than that, you've got all of it. So in terms of what you've seen from Lisandro Martinez, he is a fantastic player. He does offer plenty across it this season. In fact, what I will do is I'll get you the shooting statistics for Lisandro in just a second, so that you can see that, and we'll share that on the screen. But in terms of what he is, he's a fantastic player. If Arsenal get him done and into the club for anything quite like any £30 million figure, it's not going to be close to that. But if we can get something similar, that is a absolute steal. I don't think he's going to be that price, but hopefully what we can see is a player that's going to bring plenty to the club next season if we do manage to get it done. We're going to move on to the second half of the show and go to your questions in the chat box. But before we do, I do want to show you his shooting side of things. So let's get up the Y Scout for you so that you can see it. Let's go to 2021-22 season and go through his Super Cup, Eredivisie and Champions League shooting stats. Here we are. So he's taken last season 44 shots. He ended up getting a goal as well. Most of them, as you can see, have taken place inside the box, and when he's getting in the penalty area, as we know, he wins plenty of aerial duels. So he can, despite his height, be a threat from corners. Does like to take a fair few shots from outside the box, although that said, they haven't really hit the target. In fact, only one of those shots, and I'm counting a fair few, managed to hit the back of, just the keeper, not even the back of the net, in fairness. So shooting wise, 44 shots across the season is not bad for a centre back, averaging just over 1 per game, but a 20.5% accuracy on those as well. Apologies for the slight error in shots, but hopefully that's cleared things up for you. Let's jump into the chats and see what you guys are saying briefly before we wrap things up on our tactical breakdown. Tiago says, would love to know how he compares to Tierney. He's not a left back, so I wasn't going to compare him to Tierney. Yes, he has played there, and yes, he has played on a couple of occasions, and yes, I'm sure that he could be used in that position. But I don't think that's where you would see him the majority of the time playing for Arsenal. I think you would see him in that left centre-back role, and competing with Gabriel, maybe even a back three, is something that comes forward if he is able to bring him in. King says, sign him now, Tom. He is amazing. He is amazing. He is a brilliant footballer. Craig says, if Ben White is worth 50 million, then Martinez is surely worth at least the same off of the back of those statistics. As I had said, context-wise, you're looking at him playing for an Ajax side that have dominated the Eredivisie on the most part, bar a couple of sides. So he's going to be stat padded a little. We have put the Champions League statistics in there as well, but he's still very, very good for a player that he is, and he offers plenty. Tawana says, looking at Martinez's passing stats, it's not far-fetched to think he could be used at 6, and he has played in defensive midfield. It's an area that he's not unaccustomed to, ill-accustomed to at all. He's played there on a number of occasions. He's played there for the national team as well, played against Brazil in defensive midfield. So yeah, he could absolutely play in that role if we needed a more defensive-minded number 6. Perhaps that's one of the reasons why, beyond the non-footballing reasons, that we allow Basuma to go off, because we've got our eyes on Martinez, who can cover in that role should we need him to. So yeah, Dom, he could indeed cover for Partey if Partey does. If he is injured at any point, Martinez could come in and play that role. Balaj says, hey, Tom, do you expect any competition? Yes, Manchester United are interested in Lisandro Martinez. They aren't prioritising him as much as Arsenal are. And Arsenal have certainly, as we already know, have made a bid that was rejected. It's going to cost Arsenal significantly more than their rejected bid to get it over the line. But Man United are also one of the teams that consider him a potential target this summer. Druski says, do you think he will play in an inverted role at left back next season? No, I think he will play more of his games at left centre back and possibly in midfield more so than that role. Tierney's going to start there. If Tierney isn't available, then perhaps Martinez, but the more games I expect Martinez to play would be in defence and in the central part of the defence and in midfield. Comment stats, Omar. Hope you're doing good, mate. I'm doing fairly well indeed. He'd expect to start every game, says Abuz, and maybe, but we've got to get out of this mindset. We're releasing a piece in about 20 minutes time on football.london about the strategy around strengthening the squad and not specifically around the idea of replacing players. We've got lots of games next season. He's going to get lots of game time. So I'm looking forward, if he does indeed come in, to playing plenty of games, even with Gabriel there too. Josh says if Nuno goes on loan, he might be an option. Absolutely, he could be an option to be the backup left back, but I think he more so will be playing in centre half and in midfield more so than that left back role. But he could provide that balance should we need someone to play in that role for us next year. But don't get it wrong, Kieran Tierney would still remain Arsenal's starting left back next season. Matt G says, do you believe? Yes, I do believe. I think those sources that claim that we've had a bid rejected are very legit. So I wouldn't have any issues with backing that either. Tom says, with that potential level of investment, have the Cronkies found another war chest hidden down the back of the sofa? We've seen Arsenal spend plenty of money since 2018 on transfers. I don't think this summer's spending or potential spending is a surprise by any means. We're going to finish off today's show there. Thank you for tuning in. Apologies for the couple of errors in that show, which obviously annoys me to hell, but I'm hoping that we've made up for them by addressing those. Do drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. I've had a couple of exclusive lines go out on football.london today. The first of all, and we will cover those, of course, on the morning show, but do go over to my page on football.london. Link, as always, is in the link tree in today's video description. One piece talking about the future of Sambi Lokonga, another piece on why Fabio Vieira's deal went under the radar so significantly and why you're probably going to see more surprises quite like that in the future at Arsenal if the club get their way. It's a couple of teases. Go and read the pieces. Go and check them out over on the football.london website. Other than that, I will see you again very, very soon. It's always a pleasure to speak to you. Drop a like, subscribe if you're new, and as always, up the Arsenal.